speaking of which, the cousin of mine what's had the trouble here lately. Yeah. He just recently turned his life back over to Christ.
Praise the Lord.
That's very exciting. So we're trying to get in touch with him. He's out in Alcoa right now, trying to find a church home to get him with. So, folks, we appreciate you joining us today. We are trying to get a new system set up, so I'm trying to get myself used to actually watching the podcast live so I can see comments and stuff from my end as well. We have Jonathan back with us today. At this point, I don't even feel like it needs to be an introduction. It's just kind of they see you, they're like, oh, that's
that's that one guy again.
The unofficial third chair. So he has been to a conference here lately. I guess, would it be considered a conference?
It's called an advance.
Oh, so what's the difference in an advance and a conference?
Well, a lot of times people go on couples retreats.
Uh-huh.
And this is called a couples advance because the idea is when you leave, you want to have gained ground rather than lose ground.
Right. Okay. I like that.
Yeah, it's a good thought process.
Yeah.
Of course, people say, well, they're retreating from this, that, or the other, but it is a good thought, to have that. So
yeah.
It was very good. I was sharing it. That's what I was doing on here.
And so this morning we got to Sugar Grove, went down to Vision. We got a chance to worship with you all, and you had the the man that headed up the prayer advance down there. Who was the other fella? Where did he come into this? Dan
Vaughn. He does music.
Okay.
For the conferences. He actually. He and his wife are from West Virginia. I went to high school with his wife, and of course Dan I met just through the conference and through we went to similar church events together, stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a really neat experience. Those are the conferences, and I said this from the pulpit that changed my life, changed the direction of my life. I was saved before I went to the conference, but I wasn't free before I went to the conference. I was free from the penalty of sin, but I was still holding on to the sins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where that came along. But let's start with the Sunday school. Man.
Yeah.
The Sunday school lesson was encouraging to me.
It's always good to have someone else talk about pastorship than the pastor talking about it.
I could never say the things he said at my own church. I could say them at yours.
Yeah.
But I could never say them at my own church.
Yeah.
Because it's like, let's talk about how I need to be treated. let's talk about how
you guys aren't quite adding up to what we say here.
Let's talk about how I expect you to be in church, because God expected. So stuff like that. No, he did a good job, and he was gentle and yet firm, and so that's that, and you can tell he is a shepherd as well because of that. He's able to be gentle and firm at the same time. So I wanted to start with that. He did a good job, and then the worship. Now that is worship. What happened today, I feel, is worship, because what happened at the conferences that was called worship was people sang specials for us, and we were just supposed to be involved in them when we had no involvement in it. That's not worship, I don't think. I feel like worship is us coming together in one unity, one spirit of saying, God, you deserve this. This is all for you. And so by the time he was preaching, I was already at a point to hear it. And so, it had nothing to do with the types of songs and things like that. There was no dancing and drums and all that. It didn't matter. It was the words of the songs that led you to worship. You could actually, not only were you singing them, you saw them. And it just kind of takes you different. That's how I get into worship. I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but that's how I step into worship in that manner.
We were doing our best to corral a child that was wanting to escape, so I wasn't able to give my full focus to that. But yeah, and I think worship's tricky for me because I guess not growing up in the environment, I'm not familiar with the different aspects of it, and to me, standing and singing a song that I'm unfamiliar with, regardless of what the actual lyrics are, to me that's more struggle. But I knew these songs today, so it was good. I was actually able to actually sing with it too, so that was really good. But before with that Sunday school message, I really liked. It was very Christ-like in the manner that he directed everything, because it was never your church is lacking. It was, this is what it says we need, and this is what that translates to. This is what that looks like. This is what that actually is. And the biggest thing that I really got from that is participation. Just being there.
Yeah.
And it's one thing, as pastors, as really any type of church leadership, is we try and go, we try and be available to help people. But if we know for a fact, hey, we're going to be here at this time, that's a really good chance to get us.
Yeah. Well, and the other part of that is the participation on the people's part as well.
Yeah.
And a pastor across the country can say what he wants, but it is discouraging when you go to your church and your flock's not there.
Mm-hmm.
And people can give every excuse in the book of why they weren't at church, but when it comes down to it, it's because they don't want to be there. The end. And they, now, if you're sick, that's complete. There are circumstances where you can't be.
Sure.
But if it's such and such came into town, this nonsense, you didn't want to be there, so you didn't come. That don't respect me or love me enough to not give me an excuse. Just say I don't want to go.
Yeah.
Okay. At least I know then.
And, I don't think there's going to be any animosity in there. Yeah, there'll be disappointment. But I was telling Philip today, it's the lead a horse to water, can't make it drink thing. We can give you every opportunity in the world. It's your decision to come. We want you to.
Yeah.
More than anything, we want you to come participate, be a part of the family. But I can't make you. And if I do make you, then you're not going to be there with the right spirit.
Exactly.
And you're going to hinder, and it's just not going to be beneficial.
Yeah, and there are people that I could text, and probably just my text alone would guilt them into being there. Coerce them into being there. I don't like that thought process. I don't need numbers. I of course, when I have a speaker, especially or guest speaker, not for my sake, for their sake.
Sure.
I would like people to show up. So, the horse to water can't make them drink analogy. There was actually that's actually something I use a lot. I tell people, and this is when it comes to making people hungry for the gospel.
Mm-hmm.
Leading the horse to water. There was a sales manager that was talking to a salesperson, and the young salesperson came back and said, "I didn't make the sale." And he said, "Well, tell me about it. Why didn't you make the sale?" He said, "Well, I went there, I did my spiel, and they didn't seem to want." And he said, "It just goes to show you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink." And the sales manager looked back and he said, "It's not your responsibility to make him drink. It's your responsibility to make him thirsty."
Right.
And so I don't think that's what's happening at my church or at this church, that we're not giving them things to thirst after. I'm starting to think that there are people that aren't thirsty because they're not horses.
Sure.
If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well,
and so
I think we just talked about this. I don't remember when we just talked about it. We talked about the parable of the sower and the different seeds where they're scattered out there. And I think that we've got a lot of, especially in this area, we've got a lot of thorny ground. And it's not that the people don't have a heart for God. They sure do. But they've also got the other half of their heart for worldly things. And it's things that don't appear sinful and worldly. Family, family is a great thing. Well, it doesn't supersede God. And so I think we've got a lot of thorns that are coming up with our wheat at the same time.
I think if you're missing a church service because you have a softball game, I think there's something wrong.
That's an issue.
I don't think there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And then when your child grows up and doesn't go to church, and you say, "Well, I don't know why I had her in church all the time, except for softball weeks."
Yeah, softball is more important.
Or except for soccer weeks or whatever the sport is. You can drop like you say, you can pick up excuses all the way to the altar or all the way out the door. Yeah. So I'm not trying to be mean but there is a time that you start seeing things shift, and you start looking at things and people differently. It's like I'm treating them like they're Christians that go to my church, when I probably should be treating them like they likely are. And I'm not saying people that don't go to church aren't saved, but I am saying there's no hunger, there's no thirst for righteousness' sake. Yeah. You have to question, at least question. I'm not saying you say you're not saved, but at least you have to your mind has to work that way to draw them to Christ in a different way or somehow. So
you've got to evaluate that within yourself too, and it's not the participation in the church that brings salvation. That's an after effect. That's because of situation. You're going to want that, and there's plenty of days where we have services or whatever that I don't want to participate. I don't want to be there. I would rather be doing anything in the world, but just because I want it doesn't mean that's what I'm going to do. We do these things for the benefit of God, to worship Him, for Him, not for us. And so as soon as you figure out that balance, and again, we're not perfect by any stretch. There's still things that I would consider thorns that crop up, and there's still things that really kind of dissuade me away from it. But it's where's your energy going?
Well, and the difference between you and a lot of people, and I think this is the difference between me and a lot of people, the difference between a lot of people who are saved, people who are lost. If you go to church out of habit every week, then you got to start questioning yourself. If you have weeks that you go out of habit, even though you don't want to be there, but you want to be there more often than not, or whatever, that's a different story. That's me and you. You know, that's Phil. And just to be honest with you, it was very nice to have today off. And you guys had, like, all three of us had a day off, and I couldn't tell you the last time that happened.
I've had 2 weeks off. I've loved it.
So it's been encouraging. Just to be fed, you know, and I sat through probably 6 or 7 sermons over the weekend. It was great. Yeah. And then I come into this one and sit in Sunday school and sit in sermon, and you know, it's easy to feel burnout over and over. And you're preaching to the same people every week. If you're a pastor, you understand what I'm getting ready to say. Sometimes it almost feels like spinning wheels at times, you know. And it's refreshing to go somewhere outside of where your church is and get fed. But then also it's refreshing to go outside somewhere and preach. You know, preach other, like, come preach at Sugar Grove, or you come preach at our church. It's just a refreshing feeling. It just feels like, you know, it's almost like you get to get back to your first love again.
Yeah.
You know?
And I can also say, you know, last Friday when Pat was in, I was tired from the week. I did not want to participate. I was like, man, I wish I hadn't scheduled this guy so far out. But once you get there and you get back in that environment, that whole thing shifts. And that tells you that you weren't really feeling that way. The enemy was trying to make you feel that way just so you wouldn't participate. As soon as you break through that barrier, and I think that's a big rolling the stone away kind of moment. It's God just needs you to put forth that little bit of faith effort, the actual movement of that faith, and then he'll provide the rest of that.
And then Pat preached on idols.
He did,
and that's awesome. And that was that. Look, you know, if you didn't want to be here, you think about everyone else. You know, I didn't. You know, me and Kim didn't want to be. Kim said it. You know, and other people didn't want to be here, of course, because it's Friday night. You just got through a long week of work, and then you're going to church at night. It's like, man, I could be doing something else, like sitting at the house doing nothing, because that's what we'd be doing.
Sure.
So, but when you get there, when the first song is done, you're like, you know, this is where I need to be. It may not happen until that point. It may be in the sermon. And some people, like for me, once I got there and I just started being, you know, just talking to you and talking to other people, and you kind of start feeling like
big part of
you're at something you actually are appreciated, you want to be at. That's different too.
What's happened in the American church is that we are taught, and we, you know, like you were talking about, if you're raising your kids and, you know, they do this and that's more important than God. What we're taught in American church today is that when you accept Christ, He becomes a part of you.
Yeah.
That is wrong.
Yeah.
You become the vessel that He hostess. Yeah. You are gone. You are dead. You die.
Dead in trespasses.
Yeah. You die, and He lives through you now. He is not a part of you. So if we think of Him as, okay, now He's a part of my life. Like if you get married and people say, well, she's a part of my life. Or, you know, like now Austin is a part of my life because he married my daughter. No, it's not that kind of thing. And you know, I call you guys my kids. Like I tell people I have 6 kids because I had 3 kids and now they're all married. Now I have 6 kids. And it's even deeper than that though. He hosts you. Yeah. You die and He works through you. we don't teach that. We teach, well, I mean, when I say teach, we teach it in our action, that he becomes a part of our life.
We are his conduit.
Yes.
You know, he is the power source. Mm-hmm. We are the extension cord. You know, but the extension cord is awesome, but if you plug an extension cord into a lamp, it does nothing. But if you plug the extension cord into the power source, and then that's when the light shines, you know. And so that's
part of that, offering our bodies as a living sacrifice. That's a reasonable service. That's what it is. It's not, oh, now we have God in our life. We have an entirely new life, and we can't. I think that is a very good way to put that. It's like we're trying to compartmentalize God in there and use that to our benefit. Like, oh, here's my life as it has still been, but now we throw God in there. When entirely, if we are a new creature, if we have been born again, what's in a complete new life?
He's not a divine butler.
No.
Yeah. Stephen said, live streaming church services has created couch churches, but it's not the same when you're not around like-minded Christians sharing the love of Christ.
Exactly. I cannot stand watching recorded church services. Just outright. I've tried to watch your guys' stuff, and it's like, oh yeah, I really like this message, but it's white noise to a certain point, because when you're not there, there's not the same spiritual flowing, I guess, and the words are the same. It's just I'm not there with you guys, and I think that's a big part of it. Is we get together, we see one another, we love one another, we get to have these experiences together. We get to share in that,
encourage each other, you know.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is in the church world, like every other world, there are givers and takers. And, you know, a lot of people are takers. Like, you tell the church you're having a luncheon, a banquet.
I saw the potluck, by the way.
A potluck, whatever the case is, you tell them all this stuff, then man, you better believe they'll be there. You tell them there's a tournament of some sort to play basketball or softball or whatever, and there's a prize, things like that, they'll come. But you tell them that, you know, there's a prayer meeting, it's crickets. You know, it'd be me, and, you know, I'm not saying at my personal church. I'm saying at a lot of churches, it would be the pastor only.
I do like the idea of having.
I do too. I thought immediately about that. I said we need, and we talked about that a long time ago about getting together as a prayer meeting, and I apologize that I didn't follow through on that.
We've had a very distracting year in general.
It's been crazy.
Yeah. But I thought about that. I was like, man, how great would that be if even just once a month we could just gather together with no assigned agenda other than we're going to pray.
We're going to pray, we're going to confess, we're going to thank, and then we're going to request. I love that thought process.
Yeah,
you know.
And what a good order.
Yeah.
You know, we always, if you're in the know, and you know what I mean by that, when you pray, you understand there's an awful lot of confession and an awful lot of praise with very little requests. When you're not in the know, your prayer is exclusively request.
Yeah.
And what good does that do anything?
Oh, God, forgive me for whatever sin I may have committed. Now I really need that new car.
If they even ask for the forgiveness on that, and then they get jaded and they say, well, God's never helped me. Well, what have you ever done for him?
I have there are so many people in my life that something bad will happen to them. They don't show up to church. Something bad will happen to them. They'll show up for church and say, why did God let this happen to me? Like, where have you been? I mean, again, podcast, Facebook, I'm not saying that God's this angry person. It's like, we're not in church, I'm not going to do. But I am saying, why do we feel like God owes us anything if we have done nothing for Him?
Well, we wouldn't have the same outlook on the same situation, because it rains on the just and unjust. And like we talked about, living as a child of God is no easy road. No. And He never claims it's going to be. But it is the joy that you have inside of you through that they're missing, because they're miserable because they don't have the joy of God in them to deal with that. The problems are going to come.
Yeah.
Period. It's not going to get you in or out of problems. Like I say, He's not up there waiting for you to mess up so He can smack you on the head. Yeah. It's that so that He can be there for you as a father to help you through these issues. Yeah. Dean said, we surrender to Christ. He becomes Lord of our life. We don't operate on our feelings. We operate on His commands.
Exactly. Obedience, like we preached today. And really, that kind of, all of that circles back to these conferences. What are these conferences about? The conferences are about unity in the church. You've heard the unity, not sameness, you heard that 100 times, but it's about unity in the church. It's not that we all agree on everything. It's that we all have the same agreement point, and that's Christ.
Yeah.
There is, you go to these conferences. I've been to conferences a lot of places because I was raised in church. I was a pastor's son. I've been to conferences. I went to Crown College, so there's like 17 conferences a semester. It felt like that, at least. Not really, I'm being facetious, but there were a lot of conferences during the school year. And it was mandatory attendance for a college student, so you went to these conferences. And it was really a comparison contest when it came to these conferences. After I got out of college and I graduated and I've got a church, you go to these things, you go to these pastor fellowships, these meetings, and people, how many people does your church run, brother? And then, they know that they're going to outdo you, because you're the new guy on the block or whatever.
That's the only reason to ask that question.
It's like, well, we run about 25, 30 people. Well, brother, we run 300, but you'll get there. And it's like, just... Which has, and on my sinful side, it drove me away from that stuff.
Well, sure. It kind of rears you up.
Yeah, it's just like
defensive.
Nonsense. And so I went to this conference. Pat Tanner told me about it. It's someone I trust, and it takes someone I trust to get me to something that I'm not familiar with.
Sure.
It just does, because I've gone to a lot of things I wasn't familiar with, and I messed up. So, but this one, I trusted Pat. I trusted Crystal, and he gave me that book, and he said, you need to go to this conference. So Chelsea and I planned the conference. We'd gone to a bunch of couples retreats. That's what they were called, couples retreats, conferences in the past, and really got nothing. It was just like get away from Gatlinburg, do the husband and wife thing, whatever, and then you go home and you're back to normal or whatever. But this couple's advance was different, and we took a lot away from it, and we advanced in our marriage for the first time ever. And then through that time we had this advancement in our marriage where we sold our house, we got a new house, and then a week and a half later I got laid off my job. Mm-hmm. And this is January 7th, 2020, and I had already paid for and planned to go to the men's prayer advance that same year. And so, Chelsea and my marriage had improved, but I still had the demon on me, And so I went to the prayer advance in January 7th, 2020, and heard a very similar message that we heard today. Confess, get it right, be transparent, stop hiding, and God broke me. And that night I called, and I didn't confess everything to them that night, but I called and I said, Chelsea, put all the kids on the phone. And she put them all on the phone on FaceTime. And I apologized to every one of them for just being a bad dad, being a bad father, being a selfish father. And I'm not saying I don't have selfish moments, but that was a turning point for me as a father, for me as a husband, a turning point in my life. When I got home is when Chelsea backed me into a corner and said, what'd you get right? And I didn't want to tell her, because it's like, can I just have this? Can I keep this one to myself?
Yeah.
And that's when the 4-month stints went and all that stuff. So That's kind of where the story continued. And so the couple's advance was important to me. The men's advance is important to me. And then Chelsea went to the women's advance. And you saw the response that it gave her when she came back. She came back a different person. Mm-hmm. Now she still reverts back to the old person randomly, but when it comes down to it, she is more the new person than she was the old person. Yeah. And so you see, I guess here's my thing for you and Phil, my question for you guys, my question for anybody that I've told this about. You've seen the difference in me. You've seen the difference in Chelsea. You can see a difference in relationship. Why is nobody following suit? It's like they make a difference. They make a difference. And I understand their schedules and this and that. And I think what it comes down to is this is one of those church member questions. What is too much for a clean marriage, for a clean life, for a clean wife? What's too much? Well, I just can't afford that. I can't do that. I can't get time away. What are we sacrificing for
How much does it cost for that as far as?
Well, usually, so if you go to the men's advance, I think it's $125 for the actual advance, and then you pay for the hotel. So like if we four went or four of us went, it would be like you could do 2 to 4 per hotel room depending on how you wanted to sleep. And so you're looking at probably about
4 in a hotel.
Hey, well, there's a floor. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm saying, if you're cheap, you can do it that way.
Sure. Yeah.
And I have kids, so I do that all the time. It was nothing to me.
Yeah.
And I was a college soccer, so also nothing to me. But you get a hotel room, and then that. So you're looking at about $180. No, about $200 for the registration and the stay, and then food and gas. So, but of course, if you're driving down there with one vehicle, you have less gas. And then
now, is the one in January in Gatlinburg?
The one in January is in Virginia. It's about a 4-hour drive, but it's worth it. It's good.
Sure.
So, and
we're on it.
Yeah. And so, I again, you have from today till January to figure out a way to do that. But I'm just saying, it's important. And I know that between now and January, 150 things are going to happen. But it's kind of one of those things. It's like making your schedule in advance. We had to make our schedule when I worked at AquaClear. When I worked for that company that I worked for, which I already said it, but I had to in advance tell them I needed off for this couple's event. It wasn't I could just say, "Hi, the couple's event's coming up. I'm going to take off." I had to tell them an extended period of time in advance. I think I told them in August. I think Tanner said something about it in July or August, and I requested off for October, and that's just the way. I don't remember exactly how it happened, but it was definitely in advance. So, it's best to plan ahead, because then it doesn't sneak up on you, because that's what it does to a lot of people. Sneaks up.
And so when is this, like what days in January is this going to be?
I believe it's January 25th.
Because that would be something, with the way we work out is the earlier the better. So the 25th being on Tuesday?
No, not 25th. Let's see here. I got to look then.
And the only reason I'm asking.
While y'all are doing that, I'm going to catch up on the
27th to the 29th.
So Chelsea said we need to plan a prayer meeting today.
Well, so that's what I was going to say also. We need to, we have enough people, we have enough know-how within us. I'm sure we can get something going for that.
Then she said, thankful people are happy people. Ungrateful people are complainers. Then she said, at other couples retreats, we would see we had problems and sin in our life, but we would leave defeated, not knowing what to do about it outside of beat yourself up, because you were a worthless sinner. We retreated at the advances. They don't make you feel judged, but they show you a need to do something about it, and they are available to pray and counsel with you. You actually leave feeling you advanced in your relationship with Christ if you're willing to let God work in you.
And none of the people, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a revival service or a service where you feel like you can't talk to the speaker.
Oh yeah.
Like they're on this other level. Like, oh man, you can't talk. But you sat in the back today and talked to the main guy. He's just a person, and I love that about the advances. There's not a hierarchy.
Yeah,
it's not a I'm here, you're here, you stay in your in your little group.
Well, the speakers for big events they have an air of celebrity about them.
Yeah,
and it's almost like you feel like they are unapproachable. Now, I have also seen Philip. I don't know whether you're oblivious or you just don't care. You'll talk to if you get within 10 feet of somebody, you're going to talk to them. So like with Anna, and that's a really good example. Anna, I had this air of like, oh, she's somebody. Of course, we know she's just a normal person, and she'll tell you that. But I had never considered going to the Rasho Christie. Hey, let me go over there and talk to this person. You were immediately like, hey, I'm going to go over and talk to this person. Yeah, that's and I didn't feel that way with either one of the men today. Yeah, it did feel just very like I was talking to you kind of thing.
And that, honestly, my freedom came from them. Obviously God had to do with it. There were 3 people there today. Pat Tanner told me about the advance. I went to the advance. Dan Vaughn, the guy that did the music, is the man who talked about his coffee shop and how he led people to Christ from his coffee shop, and how God was using his coffee shop to bring glory to God. And then Harold Vaughn's the one who puts on the advances. So I looked at these 3 men today. We were at the table, and I said, you sent me to him, and he introduced me to him. So, my marriage was saved by you telling me about this. My life was saved by you putting these on. And I got a coffee shop because you opened it. So it's like 3 pillars of my life all sitting at one table, and it was amazing. And I didn't feel like nervous to talk, and I could just talk and be myself. And so
I don't think I've ever considered you as being nervous to talk about something.
It's true.
Of course, I didn't know you prior to this advance. I've only seen the effects after that. But I did see Chelsea before hers.
Yeah.
And I can see the definitive change in that. So I don't know.
If you were going to say previous to the advance, I was ashamed all the time. I didn't always, it's not like I walked around saying I'm ashamed. I mean, I'm just saying I was hard to look people in the eyes. It was hard and things like that. It was more of a same personality but a different person. If that makes sense. I don't know. I mean, I was saved. I was a Christian, but man, living in defeat all the time sucks. And I still do it, but just not in that area of my life. I still get defeated. They talked about walking away from this prayer advance and making talking right and doing this and that. So Chelsea and I did one of the exercises that they recommended, and I blew it. Like within 20 minutes of leaving the prayer advance, she was already mad at me. And so, but nonetheless, we got back on track. It was a matter of I messed up, and I messed up. I know I did. Because I took something defensive and I defended myself rather than just saying I'm sorry. Because one of the things they said, if your wife comes to you and tells you something, you may disagree, but that's her reality.
Sure.
That's where she's at. You can't convince her that she's not feeling that. You can't convince her that she's wrong about what she feels or what she sees. And he, same with husband and wife and husband. And so the best thing is to figure out what it is, what's the root of that, how to deal with that, and just say, look, I'm sorry that I make you feel that way. That's not my intentions or whatever. So that was really good. Chelsea said something, didn't she?
She's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that same mentality works in all our relationships. We can see the big thing. People. You hear people that offend a lot tend to say, well, what I said wasn't meant to be offensive, what have you. There's no reason they should act like that. They need to get over it. When the whole time you got to understand that what they're going through, they received offense. Yeah. Whether you gave it or not, they received offense. Mm-hmm. And so you have to, whether you think you did or not, you've got to come to that conclusion that that's what they experienced. Parents do it to kids all the time. That's the big thing. The big thing that my parents did whenever I was growing up is if I slept in late on the weekends and I would come out of the bedroom whatever time, there was always, oh, he's finally up, that kind of thing. Well, that's a negative reaction to something that they positively want to see. If you want to see your kids spend more time with you, don't react negatively when they finally do. And as husband and wives, it's the same kind of setup. Yeah. And of course, no offense about that, mom and dad, but they didn't mean it offensively. They were cracking a joke. Yeah. Well, as a teenager, heck, I got low self-esteem as it is. Got my own issues I'm working with. So there we go.
Yeah, it is. It was really good. The one thing that, man, this one got me. Whenever you have a disagreement with your wife or your husband, and this is a phrase that he said that, man, it was like, wow. You don't think about that. It's not about winning an argument. It's about winning a person. And so you're not trying to win an argument, because how many arguments have you won with your wives, or they've won with us? I'll stop. How many arguments have you had with your wife where you felt like you won because you got the last word in? Let's put it that way. Okay. Phil has the big goose egg up. Well, how many arguments have you had where one or the other feels like they won, but they lost the other person.
It doesn't really feel like a win in any situation.
Yeah, you walk away.
Your victory hurt that person.
Exactly.
If you feel that way. One of the big things that Savannah and I do, and it's a little thing, but it becomes a big thing very quickly, is if, well, this is how this word is spelled. Well, no, it's not. Well, it's immediately Google. We're going to figure out what this is. And it's just for the point. Doesn't matter what it is. Just for the point to say I was right. And all that does is it makes us upset.
Yeah, Jonathan, you just upset me all the time.
Yeah.
I know. And I'm sorry you feel that
way. Sorry, that's how you receive.
I'm sorry, that's how you receive one thing.
Yeah. That's all I can do about it. So I guess give me a generic overview of you walk in the front door of the conference.
Okay, so basically how we had church today is very similar to like one of the conference meetings, where somebody gets up, there's a countdown, and it happens, and they sing 3 or 4 songs, they make an announcement, then they sing like 4 songs and a special, and then they preach. I mean, it's like that about every one. When the couples one, they'll do like a couples game or whatever, things like it's kind of fun. Chelsea and I were on that. That was interesting. We were doing a song thing where you had to pick a word out of a bag and sing a song, and the other person had to guess what song you're singing.
Okay.
And so I did that, and I did 2 songs that are secular, and Chelsea guessed them. And I was like, okay, so I got the third one. The third one was Heaven. And I started singing Heaven is a Wonderful Place, which is the name of the song. And that's what I was doing. I was picking words that I could sing the name of the song in the song. And I sang Heaven is a Wonderful Place. And Chelsea said, I have no idea what song that is. and I looked at her in front of everybody. I said, you knew the 2 secular ones, but the one Christian song I sang you didn't know. and I was like, I didn't know. And so, no, but that was a lot of fun. Just little things like that. And they have you do exercises. Like, I remember back in the day, it's very difficult to look at each other in the eye, being a husband and wife, especially when you have her past and you have my present. Back in 2019, and they would say, I want you to grab your wife's hand, turn around, look her in the eye, tell her you love her, tell her 3 good things about her, just something like that, just an exercise to just get you out of the normality, because how do we handle compliments? We'll be looking at this screen, and she'll be looking at this screen, and we say, hey, baby, I love you. And it never an eye contact, never. But they make you stop and focus on the person you're talking to. And just little exercises like that, little things like that, just to help you excel in your relationship, and to realize how much you haven't been doing, to have a successful marriage. It's just really, it's life changing. And as far as the men's conference goes, they sing and sing and sing, and I say this out of a joke, but man, then they rip you apart. It's the women in men's conferences are directed to that group, mm-hmm. that gender, because that is a thing. There are 2 genders, and that gender of people. And
we're getting taken down.
Yeah, they hit directly to the psyche, or the of what we go through. Men, this is how you treat your wives, this is how you treat your kids, this is why you do that, this is what the Bible says about that, this is what the Bible says you need to do, how you need to treat your wife, how you treat you, so on. And so they hit directly. It's like Mike Tyson, it's just like boom, 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 boom. Where in the couples, it's crossfire kind of thing, to where they kind of hit both sides, but they hit them lightly. They don't hit them like real harsh. And then the women's, they do the same thing to the women's side. And then the teen advance is great too, because they hit teenagers, and it's girls and boys mixed, but all girls and boys are going through the same same thing. So it's very nice, very direct, and it's just something that helps people. And if you, like you said, it's hard to watch it online. You can watch them online as well, but they're just hard to watch online. It's not the same experience. Hearing the singing of the congregation is different. It's just a different experience, but it's really good.
Yeah, sounds like something to definitely participate in. And one of the things that has really stuck out about you since I've known you, one of the things you've pushed, and I guess it came from this, is that being open with one another. And it's not that you want to be the same level of openness with everybody. If that makes sense. You find your core, and those are the ones you can be completely fleshed out to. And then the other ones you can kind of give an oversight to, and then, general broad term audience be like, hey, I'm flawed. As far as you need to know.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless, the moment arises and, hey, this is a specific thing that I feel you need to hear. But that's very few and far between. But it is very comforting to have that group that you can be so uncomfortable with.
Exactly. The thing about it is if you really have those deep, dark thoughts of committing suicide and stuff like that, a lot of people who are going to actually commit suicide feel like they have no one to tell. But like, if you ever had that in a close knit group like this, you could tell us, and we wouldn't be like, oh, I can't believe you loser, things like that. Wherein if you tell the wrong person, that's kind of the reaction you get.
Well, really, a lot of it, if in our group specifically, we've talked about a lot of things, and a lot of it you can kind of see when those things start to rear their heads back up, and you can say, okay, so what specifically is going on here? Because something is going on.
What is pulling you away? And that's one of those things that, like, even you could, like, over the last month, you could feel you like pulling away from the group, but you have the hardest position in the group because you are the only one that doesn't ever come to the coffee shop. And that's a hard position to be in. It's not because you don't want to.
No,
it's because you don't have the ability to.
Yeah.
And that's wherein Steven's there, Phil's there about every day, and so not saying the coffee shop's anything, but I'm just saying.
But you guys get to meet more.
Yeah,
I'm always kind of in the background hearing secondhand, thirdhand kind of stuff.
Which could make somebody who deals with depression depressed and say, I'm not needed.
Well, this whole month, I was telling Stephen, I don't know if I was telling Stephen, I've just been thinking about telling Stephen, because during Sunday school, I sat back there with him to kind of help watch the live feed while he was getting the music, everything ready. And, he's been sick this month. Mm-hmm. And I guess I was just thinking it. I was like, dude, this month has been horrible for me spiritually, because I have not felt compelled, drawn, or anything. I've just felt completely blank, and it's 1,000% because I've been getting home like 7:30 most nights, this entire month, and I'm letting so much stuff get in the way of the important stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm struggling with that balance, trying to find that. But because I have this group, I can, whether it's a month too late or not, reach out there and talk to somebody about that, and to kind of get that. And you're not counselors, you're not therapists. It's just, hey,
we're friends, we're family.
And that's it.
And also, I think we've all four been going through it. And let's just throw it out there. We all got disappointed, and we all felt like we got swindled.
Bamboozled.
And whatever, and whoever wants to hear this can hear. We all feel like we got hurt. We got disrespectfully hurt, and we got swindled, we feel like. And so you have that, and then we've had a month of really not much going on up to this point, until this point, really. And so it almost makes you feel like you're alone again. Mm-hmm. It puts you back into that mentality that I can't trust anybody. I mean, it's like, I was open with this person, and this is what they did. But we just need to get over it.
Yeah, well, that's all it is.
Already am.
Phil's always a step above.
Well, no, I'm just saying that I'm older.
I know you are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So your wife said, absolutely, I am so thankful for all of you. Hey, now, I'm not down there either.
No way.
At the coffee shop.
Yeah, but you get to live with Jonathan, so you get a little bit more of it.
Oh yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah,
a lot more of it.
That's got her spirits up.
I told Chelsea today after the service, I said I love when the two bodies can join together and it's not two bodies anymore.
Yeah.
And I said I still desire with everything that I have to do that at least more regularly. And I do think at least once a month we need to come up with something.
It's hard for us. It's hard for me to bring vision here, not just because we have people that come that aren't all the time people. They're just random, and I don't even have some of their phone numbers. So that's why I hate to shut down vision.
What I'm hearing is this is all a failure on Jonathan's part.
That's what it sounds
That's
like.
what I'm hearing.
Well, if it's my responsibility, then yeah, sure. But yeah, it is hard. It's just hard.
If we hadn't got rid of the van, there would have been no excuse. We'll just go. We'll be there. Next.
So
Turn them seats around, man.
it's just hard. I don't know. And our church is growing randomly, and so it's like I said, it's just hard. We're in a weird transition period, just like anything, to where it'd be like if I said, "Hey, we're not having church next Sunday. We're going to Sugar Grove." It would be a little bit different of a response than you guys saying we're going to Vision. Of course, you guys got a similar response, though, really, because some people didn't show up.
We've been having the weirdest time. It's completely unpredictable who, what, when, and where, and why at any time. The only one that is solid is me, because I know where I'm going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then with Philip's work schedule being in and out, it's just and it's there's so many worldly things that are getting in our way.
Yeah.
That's throwing us down, and I keep weighing on myself, and I'll say,
I think you need to come preach at Vision, because I think it would encourage you.
Sure.
I know that sounds like a weird thing. You need to teach Sunday school at Vision. I think it would encourage you. Again. You preach too. I think it would encourage you just because, I don't know. I feel like there are people, and I've preached at your church and I love your people, and some of them suck it up. I mean, I'm not going to mention names because I'm not going to say the ones that don't. So I'm just going to say some of them suck it up, some of them don't. And it gets weary.
You want to do an unannounced switch and just like not announce it? You just show up. You and Steven show up. Me and Philip show up down there.
I think you just announced it.
Yeah, I kind of.
Hey, they don't listen. They'll forget about it.
So it's a matter of I think it would be good for you to, not good for you, it would just be good. It's good to have. I said it today. It's good to have new people to speak to, and give them one of the best things God's given you recently that re-encourages your heart.
Yeah.
It's just like, because you tell, like you're excited behind the pulpit, and then you're looking at a bunch of people that are like blank faced, and I get it, man. I get it. And then there's always those couple people that are excited, and they're excited, so you tend to look at them the whole time, but you feel like you're preaching to two people rather than 12.
Yeah, there's also the whole, sometimes the message God's given you may be a message you've already given, and this crowd has already heard it. Mm-hmm. You can give the same message. I've got 2 or 3 that are just powerful every time they knock me down, but my group's heard them 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's, anything they don't need to hear. It's just I don't feel they get the same thing from it that I do. We was talking to Pat, he said he kind of does the same thing, just maybe use different verses for it. I know in my heart that the people that hear that from me all the time, straight out, don't hear any of that.
Yeah. And
Joseph said, "What?"
Yeah, and you're blessed. You have some good people, and we're blessed. We have some good people, and but like I said, it's nice to have new people hear a message that encourages your heart, because once in a while you need to be encouraged too.
Yeah.
And God gives you sermons to encourage yourself, and also gives you people to go listen to, like today, to encourage us.
I was very rarely do I get the opportunity that I can kind of speak boldly and freely about church with one of my clients, customers that I'm in the house. But some of them, I'll talk for 2 hours just about church matters. Some of them, I kind of toss the hook out there and they spit it back out, and that's all they want. But I was talking to one person. They're talking about their body, and of course the numbers question came up, and I said, we're small, and I said, but the people that we have are devoted. I said, I'd rather take the 10 of heart than the 100 of not. And she kind of tossed out her number. She's like, new churches, they'll grow, they'll get there. And I was like,
yeah, it's like you're a pastor fellowship or something.
I was like, well, the church itself's a century and a half old. I said, I did just start, but I did come into a body that had been there. But that was discouraging at the time. But then the more I looked at it, I was like, I would hate to have that attitude.
Yeah. Well, when you're focused on the amount of people, I mean, Gideon took 300, and so and Gideon had nothing to do with it. I'm not gonna lie, it was God,
Sure.
So the sword of the Lord was enough. He didn't need Gideon. Go ahead.
David Manor said, "All of you are good people."
Well, thank you, David Manor.
None are good.
Yeah.
Well, he's good in us.
I was about to say, we must be showing that goodness through there. I can tell you right now that 300 people at either one of our buildings would be uncomfortable.
It was very uncomfortable. I'll be honest, I love our church. I love our people. I mean, it's kind of like that. I love your people, but I love our people. I love. There's just a different feel. It's just different, I feel like I almost feel like I could vent or tell anybody in my church anything, and that's different. That's different.
That's unusual.
It's very unusual, And now, granted, I could tell people some of your people in your church. There's some I don't know well enough to really, and there are Joe. I mean, I tell Joe anything, and Gail. But my church family, I feel like if there's something going on in my life, they'd rally around me and pray over me, and they'd love on me, and there's not a better feeling.
No, that's exactly what the body's for, is to build one up like that. I told Stephen last week. I said Larry, Stephen's father-in-law, may have been my favorite guest, and Stephen just put like a frowny face back. And I was like, it's not because he's better, but it's because we kind of had the same off-the-wall interest to do these studies on. And that's the first person I was like, oh, we can talk some weird stuff, and it just be a weird conversation, as opposed to like the okay, and then turn around kind of thing. But Stephen is a fantastic person too. And the first time that I met him, he came up and said that I had said something on the podcast that affected him, and that really hit me. And just everybody that I've been introduced to via you and that group has been so phenomenal. And I feel the same way, so very close to them. And now there's, Stephen. I'll tell Stephen whatever, whenever. To that point, because we have that relationship in there. And it's such an important thing to have, but it is good to have the full body that will rally around the entire group. And it's good to think that I can put a message out there to the entirety and say, this is the situation, no specific details, this is what needs prayer for, and I know that they're going to pray.
We need to have it. We need to have a not sermon prayer meeting, not singing, unless singing happens during the prayer. But we need to have kind of the symphony of prayer again, to where people are confessing, and I love that order: confess, gratitude, and then request. And I have a feeling that once we got past the gratitude part, we'd have a lot less requests.
Oh, yeah.
We'd understand that God's not our genie; He's our God. And so I really want to. We need to plan that. Whether it be a bonfire, whether it be just coming to this church or our church or my house or your house, Phil, whatever, wherever. It doesn't matter to me, coffee shop. We need to get together and just get honest with each other again. Because I think that's something we had really strong back in the day. We were more honest with each other. And I think we've all three gone through distresses and depressions and different things, and we weren't as open with each other about it. And that's why we've all retreated back to our caves, because we made ourselves feel alone. Mm-hmm. We are not alone. We made ourselves feel alone. Mm-hmm. We need to get back to the first love. The first love is Him, but He gave us each other to remind each other of our first love.
Yeah, and we were having those meetings once a month, which I thought were great, and I think we need to do something, if not the same thing, back into that. And we've got plenty of locations, plenty of wood, plenty of opportunity to be able to do that. And I think that's something that's really good, because that's really where a lot of that genuineness came to me. Prior to that, it was just kind of a trudging along.
Just church on Sunday, church on Wednesday.
Well, I still had the mindset then of I was forced into the pastorship. Yeah. And then, just from being open about that and kind of the revelations that God personally gave me, it's changed my whole outlook on it. But yeah, you're right. We have had that distance, and there have been a lot of things that have gone on that I've just kind of.
We have excuses, but they're not valid. I mean, all of us do. I have excuses.
Well, excuses aren't.
They're not valid. They're just what they are. They're excuses.
Yeah. Stephen said, November family bonfire prayer meeting.
November family bonfire prayer meeting. All right. Well, that's fine. It is November's tomorrow, so.
What if we do it after Thanksgiving? The Friday after, or Saturday after, or whatever.
I'll be in Memphis. I'm preaching.
I'm excited for that, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. I'd hate to have to drive out there, but I would like to hear that.
Well, you can watch it on the Facebook.
It won't be the same, man. It won't be the same.
It won't. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited about that. So
Well, it's an hour different time zone, so maybe watching it live will be different.
yeah, maybe. You could. I'm trying to think about when we could do. I'll have to get with my wife on a schedule for the bonfire because I promise you.
She's saying yes.
Ask her
She's
what.
on board.
Ask her what schedule because.
You're talking to her, right?
Yeah, you keep the schedule, baby.
Yeah.
So you tell me, and I'll tell everybody else. So.
The Blessing in Person podcast. It's the only podcast where people are going to figure out their personal lives.
Yeah.
But that's what better time than when the Spirit strikes you on that. I do know that we have a fire ring out there that we have not burned a fire in since we about burnt the valley down. So we've been kind of gunshot. We have the opportunity. We have what we need for it.
Yeah, I'm game to do it here. You know, I don't really, personally, I'm to the point now, I don't even care if we have a big crowd, as long as we have the right crowd.
I mean, there were a few of those meetings that we were doing that we didn't have a big crowd, but
Yeah.
it was the people who needed to be there
It
for
was
it.
the people that needed to be there. And I think we need to have a family bonfire. But I think we three and maybe one or two more need to get together and confess and be transparent. Thank God for all the things He's done in our life. And then,
Without a doubt.
yeah, and because I think that's something we could do any day, any night, whatever, any night that fills off. So we could do that, and maybe do it in West Virginia at your mom's house or something. I don't know. Maybe just go aside and do it.
Well, they were saying the 13th, but I was telling them we'll all be out of town.
See, there you go. So that's what I'm saying. Like November is
Busy.
packed.
Yeah.
It's packed, and so I'm not mad about it though.
Yeah, it's
But,
busy in the good way. It's for the best things, I think.
Yeah, I'm happy.
So give us the rundown, the time, the dates for the upcoming advances, and how people can see and get in contact with that and get registered for it.
You go to Christ Life Ministries, Christ Life, Life Ministries.org is where you find it at. The different advances. Let's see here. The men's prayer advance is in Roanoke, Virginia, January 27th to the 29th. If you live in this area and you're a man, you'd like to go to this, and your church doesn't want to go, but you want to go, reach out to us, and we will figure out a way, because we're going to have to get a few different hotel rooms and different things like that. So that would save you on that at the very least. And then the ladies' prayer advance, I had to look at all the dates here. Prayer advances, ladies.
Steven shared it
Okay. Stephen shared it, so I don't have to
on
anymore.
Facebook, Bill, but you still need to for.
Ladies' prayer advance, March 24th through the 26th, and that's also in Roanoke, Virginia. And then there's I think there's 2 men's and 2 ladies this year, but I think the other ladies one's in November. So if you can get those 2, remember those 2. And I'll tell you what, the student prayer advance, wow. I know that it's for students, but man, the preachers that are going to be at that are going to be phenomenal. And the couples prayer advance next year is great. It's actually in Gatlinburg. So I highly recommend you guys take a couple days. It's really only taking, if you're off Thursday by 3 o'clock, you can get there in time to register and just take off Friday. And that's all you need off one day. So
As long as I've got a month or so in advance knowledge, I can basically get it off, whether I've got the time for it or not, just knowing and remembering.
yeah, well, Chelsea and I will be more. It seems, like I said, I think the separation, the distance and stuff, all the different things we were going through kept me from even saying anything to you guys about it, because I was like, they won't go. Like I convinced myself of that. So, my bad.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I'm here.
it's one of those things, and I think it kind of stands to testament of the relationship that we've got through Christ, in that we can openly acknowledge this is what's been going on. We can forgive one another for it. We can move past it, and we can go on to the next step like nothing ever happened.
Exactly.
Right back from the beginning of it. You got anything else to add for it?
No, I mean,
One of these days we'll have to get you on here for a testimony.
I was gonna. Well, that was. I told you guys last time I was gonna do that, but now
that's what you're scheduled for. But
that was today. I was scheduled for.
Yeah.
That. Okay. Well, I apologize. You guys said I wanted to do the advance, so that's what I did.
We'll get you.
I was obedient.
Yeah. So, we'll get you. Philip, you got anything else? Any final comments? Anything like that?
It's just working personal stuff out.
Yeah. Folks, we do appreciate you joining us today on this Halloween. We didn't even acknowledge that because what does that even mean anymore?
I don't know.
I can't remember the last time I've seen a kid knock on a door to get candy. It's just kind of whatever it is. Just go buy candy and eat it. But we appreciate you joining us here today for everything we talked about. And I'm not going to apologize for the personal stuff we talked about the schedules and all that, because I think that is a good representation of a couple of brothers in Christ just talking. That's really what the majority of this podcast is. If we're not doing testimony, we're talking. We're living that life and showing examples of how we interact with that. And it's something that's transparent, it's open, it's honest. Sometimes it's ugly, but it's always beautiful in the end because God is able to take that, use that, and mold that. We hope that you're able to at least look up the Christ Life Ministries to learn more about them. If you are in the area, if you're not in the area, try and get out there to that. It sounds incredible. And if it's anything like we got this morning, it's going to be awesome.
Yeah. And the nice thing is what people heard and saw today is people just saying, look, we messed up. We screwed up. It's okay. Move on.
Oh yeah, so that's one thing that he said whenever he had been to, I think he said he was in Chicago maybe, or somewhere in Illinois, and he had said that he got up there and he started confessing, and they were like, well, we didn't know the preachers had anything to confess. Yeah. Are you joking?
Well, hey man, it's different. You got to think the circle he runs in.
Yeah.
It's hard. It really is, and he's kind of created his own oval. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at too. We kind of created our own people that we trust, and that's what happens. So I don't know.
Don't ever think that anybody doesn't have anything they can confess and they're not prepared for. But we'd love to see you out there. I'm going to do my level best. I can already start requesting now. Just got to fill out the form. I will need reminders from the reminding team. But folks, we appreciate it. We pray that this has been beneficial to you in some facet. We would love to hear from you. We have been getting a lot more feedback here lately. I guess the ads have been working or something's going on. Positive, negative, we don't care. We'll take it. We'll talk to you. Whether it's me or Philip that's responding, not sure yet.
If it's to the negative, it's Phil.
We would prefer positive interaction, but we'll take the negatives too because it does help us. It helps us in our studies. It helps us figure out what our point is on there. We'd love to hear any rates, reviews, comments. You can comment directly below this video. You can send us a direct Facebook message. You can send us an email at blessingandcursing3019.com. But the single greatest thing that you can do to help this ministry out is to share it to the platforms that you are on. Every share that you do introduces us to a new list of people, gets us in more ears, not for our benefit, but for the gospel and for people that need to hear what we're talking about. Gives them opportunity to hear that. So we appreciate the help with that, and God bless you. Thank you.